There we go. Now the last thing is the video icon. So all good. Now I'm good to go. I'll start with the slides, with whatever was remaining from our previous session. We were doing the aesthetic part and some of the complexities and few things I want to discuss today before I conclude this part. So let's review the slide that's showing on the screen now. These are just examples of how aesthetics can be leveraged or optimized for certain type of search queries. You can build queries like they're not numbered, unfortunately. They should be so that it is even more easier for me. Just give me a moment here. I'll just number it so there is no confusion going forward. 2, 3, and 4. That's it. Now, in the first one, you can see from the structure of how it is set, um, you can see that we are using the aesthetic to find missing element in a date structure, which means the day we cannot, we are not sure of. And this is what we'd like to query. Not that we are querying that the date or the day itself, but with the options that you see with different formats of dates that's put in there, the search would find the missing, exact date with the day not available to us. Yet we want it to be found with reference to California elections. We know it's in October sometime and it's in 2003, but exact day we don't know. So to find that, or for letting the search engine to find it for us, we can uh, use the advantage of using the asterisk. So structurally, it is correct, as you can see, unless you find there is some error in there. For me, it seems that it is accurately done. Now, I'd like to play it this way. I don't want animation. So in the first one, you could see that I have actually used OR twice, which means there were three options for us for the dates to be recognized or understood in any manner or way it may be formatted, for which we don't have a precise format available. Yet we don't want any of the typical formats to be ignored. If we had used one format against another, then we would lose out on other formats. So to put all three formats, we have used one format, as you can see right here. Another way of writing it is here. The third option is here. But these are still options for the search to find any of these three of formats. Yet, what is um, uh, what is usual or what is typical is that the asterisk is placed where the day should be. See, day, day. So we used asterisk this way. And we put the date itself within quotations, not outside of it. So it is restrained because of the quotation, and it is going to asterisk is going to look for the missing value inside of what you have in the quoted portion. Now, if I am to run this query, what's going to happen? Let's check it out. Apparently, it looks accurate to me. I'm going to run it. I will look at the dates here. I'm sorry, this is in Turkish. I have to translate this. Okay. So now we have the date. It's running in Turkish because default situation I have. I'm going to use a VPN just to patch up this part. October 8, 2003. So in one instance, I saw it is October 8th. So the format of the date says OCT 8. So this could be the first format. It filled it up with the missing date or the day itself. Turns out to be 8th. In the other one, it is October 8th again. And this is the typical format, which is what is bringing results for California elections. There could be others as well, and those won't be missed out either. So if we keep scrolling down, we might find um, other format of the date as well. Okay. So there could be other formats, but this seems to be doing okay. So we leave it at that. Our objective is fulfilled. So this one was the winner, I guess, between the three formats. Um, so this kind of gives you an idea of one of the complexities of how the aesthetics would work. Like the pattern itself is not conclusive. It is inclusive of aesthetics, but there could be many other variations in which you can use it. But apparently, this gives you one way of how you can be more creative in applying the aesthetics. The second one, we have this long query, but I think I can work with this a little bit more with the um, explanation, which may require a little bit of thought, and you might want to look at it from two point of views. One is, first of all, the first one is simpler than the one which is there in the slide. So we are now cutting it down, making it briefer. What used to be this whole query, I am just not mentioning or adding the second segment of the query for the reason of simplicity. So assuming in the first instance, let's assume that it is this query, which means that we have used conquering the with two asterisks and looks like it's an incomplete sentence. It looks like it's a piece of something that's pulled out from maybe a para or a longer set of content. Um, and it is placed inside of the quotation marks. When we are putting the asterisks within something that is quoted or which is inside of quotes with the missing components, we definitely are reducing the possibilities of ensuring that the search may not deviate and look for the rest of the sentence, which is beyond and after the word grief, for instance, as a continuation, or is prior to or something continuing, which is added to the word conquering, that is the start of the search phrase. So there is a demarcation or there is an extraction of this piece by enclosing it within quotes. And with using of the asterisks, we are ensuring that whatever remains or needs to be found should be with reference to whatever falls on either side of the first asterisk, similarly, same thing with the second asterisk, except that the asterisk is going to look for relationship as a continuation of a sentence or a missing uh, element that comes after the word the, but with relationship to conquering the as two words. And therefore, whatever is to follow after filling in the exact placement of what is missing, uh, follow up of what continues with A and D. So it is basically generating its own will of what it feels could be the missing element with relationship to whatever is first coming on one side and then continuing as in language from left to right on the right hand side. So this is kind of giving you 29 results, which means it is probably more precise. And when you look at the result or anything that is shown in this snippet, you will find that it pulled, and this is what I just tested before starting the class. I saw that this was the description or something which was highlighting the portion that I'm showing in the yellow highlighted part as something that it found to be matching for the missing words, like conquering the, there was the word missing, that was the missing word mysteries, and then there was the word lies that was missing. So it just plugged it in plugged it in, and then it came up with this statement with 29 results on. Now, when I removed, let's not look at number two. I'd rather show you number three first. Okay. So in three, when I removed the quotation marks and I used the asterisks, of course, asterisk is going to function nevertheless. It doesn't have to have that restriction that you have to put everything within quotes and then insert or for the asterisk to play its part inside of the quotation. It's not necessary. So when I remove the quotation marks in closure for the same query as in one, you can see in three, I get results which are far too many. I get 49,800,000 results. Okay. So why is that? And at times we have to do it intentionally. If we are not getting the right results by using quotation marks or putting it within quotes, we may want to lose those quotation marks just to open it up, give it the opportunity to bring whatever else or whatever is available. So that could be far too many results, but it's better than having none or no results. So it is by design that you have to open it up, sometimes intentionally. Thinking of it as the same condition in three, what we could see is that we get far too many results. Now, my objective to explain this is to tell you why the quoted version versus the non-quoted sometimes would have a variance of a number of results, and what you would expect could be the reason or caution or kind of an impression that you have to carry when you're not using anything that is within quotes, so that you would understand why so many results. And from what I found, one of the reasons is that if supposing in condition 3.1, it might just have pulled something which could partially be sufficient for it to find something similar or find the variance of a part of the phrase that or the number of words you have put in the search. So conquering the might be ignored totally, or and it might just pick up on a page that would have asterisk starting with the continuation of A and D, and another asterisk with the continuation of grief. So it might just distort, change, or assume something different because now it is segmenting the search phrase and imposing its own will or its own best judgment to find by segmenting or separating it into components and then finding something else that connects or connects in continuation uh, uh, with the asterisk and the word and so on. 3.2 similarly might be inversely impacting. Conquering the would be the word with continuation of asterisk, and it might just think and asterisk of grief as a second component or another set of information that might use or choose a different wording to replace the asterisk, and so it continues. Okay, even in 3.3 you can see that it might just be filling in with separating it conceptually. It might be two phrases, two words, or two, or their combination might add to something which you are, you may not be getting to what you require. So that's where it becomes a kind of an erratic behavior, and that's why 49,800,000 results. So what I'm saying is that the use of the quotation or anything that is quoted or placed inside uh, of these of it would and playing with the aesthetics by restraining or constraining it to act with relationship to something that is well confined would give you better results. That's the only objective of this sort of query. Now in two, let me just cut this, and I'm going to place it here. Okay. In number three, which is exactly what is shown as a longer query in the slides, you could see that this was it. Hold on. So what happened when you use the quotation marks? You are basically segmenting this, separating this one as something that would have a function related to asterisk for finding what is missing, with relationship to other words, which is an extension of your query to act and look for even more concise or more precision search. You have added the word book. You have emphasized the word author. Okay, book is not within quotes, and you know what might happen if it's not within quotes. It's optional for the search. Author is a must. That it has to be found with relationship to the word author, because you also need, besides the fulfillment of what makes this a statement or this quoted segment, you also want the name of the author. You also are requesting for it to reveal the price in dollars. So price and dollars, as you could see, they both are not placed within quotation marks intentionally, because where there is the word price missing, there usually is a dollar sign. But what if dollar sign and price both are missing, but still it is a book you need to get to, and it may have price written, in any other currency, I don't know. Anyway, idea of not putting one of these, the dollar sign and price within quotes, makes sense for it to be found in any case, irrespective if the price is there or not. And then another restricted side colon, which we haven't dealt with so far. We'll look for it, and we'll get to that later. But what it does is just sort of ensures that the result is coming from Amazon.com website, because it's the domain that you have to declare in its entirety with the extension. So site colon amazon.com is where you need your results to come from. If you run this, you will surely find a result to your satisfaction. And this is pretty much, so it's going to work as imagined, unless you wanted to change few things, move few things around, you could still do that. There could be so many ways in which you can play with the minus sign, for instance. But one thing that I'll caution you about is that even though the asterisk is not an absolute command, and you can see there could be multiple instances of using the asterisk, you can never use a minus sign uh, where the asterisk is to play its part. Um, because let's say, let's say you had in your if you had not placed a quotation marks here and you wanted to use the word minus grief, for instance, over here, you will not make it convenient for the aesthetic to behave as it's supposed to, because the nature of the behavior is predetermined and it wouldn't act with the minus sign. You have to segment and separate the statement entirely before you can apply the minus anywhere else in the same query. For example, by putting this within quotes, I ensured that I would be able to use minus. If I have to use a minus for, if you're not looking for a book, let's say you need a mention of the author, but not exactly the book, you can put minus book. You can even put, and this is going a little bit further than what I'm supposed to with the site operator. We'll be dealing with it later also, and we'll be using minuses there. But let's suppose we don't want some results to be coming, or and let's even make it simpler. Let's say I don't want my result to be coming from the Amazon site. So I will use a minus sign here. Okay. And it'll work beautifully. But if I have it opened like this, and I'm going to, run this query, the result would come weird. It'll be, something that is not, you will not be pleased with the result. So that's all that it just came to my mind. I thought I'll explain it. And let's bring it back to its original format, because this goes um, in your class notes. Okay. So, okay, we've done this. We've done this part. Now, what is next in the aesthetics? This one. Let's take this. Okay, so this is my query, query number 6. Let me bring it up a little. In this one, I have used asterisk in the beginning of the search phrase and at the end, making sure that there is a gap of a single character in between, so that it's not the spelling or extension of the word changed, or anything that gets added to the word search. Unless we leave a gap, we won't be able to separate it. But when there is a gap of a single character and the asterisk, like if you can see the placement, this could mean single word, bunch of words, many words, could be any combination of words. So it is a space that is granted to the search engine, where the search engine would have a selection or using its best options to find what could be missing part. So in this situation, if we had not placed the, now this is what this example is telling you, is that you should be putting the quotation marks enclosure in situations like this, where you are trying to find something at the start of a incomplete sentence or partial sentence, main sentence. That could be a long one, but there could be added version of something that can still be considered as a continuation of it, of the rest of it that is shown that you wrote, and what could be the continuation of what can be something that would follow the last word of the sentence. So in both cases, if you don't give it a demarcation like this, what will happen is that you will get a lot many results. Like search behavior has changed. Now this word could be common with so many other contents and related writings, that it would just have a behavior which is very hard to control. So, but with the asterisk, with the quotation marks enclosed, it does somehow behave a little bit better, or it doesn't misbehave as much. Um, that's just to tell you that even with these four words, search behavior has changed, and what remains to be found on either side of it may be few words or could be far many words. Yet, it would bring it would still bring less results. I mean, there is no logic to it, because if you think of it in terms of what could appear, or what could be the combinations for starting and at the at the starting and at the end, there could be too many, far too many. But somehow the search engine has this sense, or somehow it has the idea that the restrictor of quotation mark and close would reveal lesser results, perhaps slightly more accurate, but without any logic, because logic is what I'm talking in the sense of how many words would fit in at the beginning or at the end. There is no fixed math to it. We can't figure it out. This is a mystery for us. But if you lose those quotation marks, still the impact should be somewhat similar, logically speaking, because it's missing anything before and after, could be many words, but the amount of results it's going to throw at you are far too many. So it is always a good idea, if you want something to be found where the beginning of it and at the end of it there could be many, many, many words, and still by using the constraint of a quotation mark, you can somewhat do a better search. You can expect more precise results than not using the quoted marks. And at times, the search might just return very few results, and at the same time it might just give you a suggestion, kind of saying that please lose these quotation marks. And when it says that, it is actually in effect, it's aching, it's trying to find something and it can't. So it's saying, have mercy, please get rid of those quoted ones, or the quotation marks. And this comes a lot of times as a suggestion, especially at times there is null result and still there's a statement saying, did you mean? And then when you look at it, you would find that the only thing missing, or it is suggesting, is to get rid of those quotation marks. So to open it up, give it a breather. That's something, it's a choice that you might want to give. If you don't find anything, perhaps that's a better option. Anyway, so that's having said this, actually, we have to start with these other snippet related searches with the operators in title, in text. So I want to do it very, very quickly. Um, this one at the very end, let me see if it is of any consequence. Um, Nothing really. I mean, I would just not waste my time on number four, because we haven't done before with the colon. That's another operator we'll deal with. Let's just leave it at this. And I'm going to take a break right now. In about 10 minutes, I'll come back and we will do in title, all in title, and see if we find some time to do in text and all in text. And that's all snippet related advanced operators. So I'll see you in a little bit. Eh?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Screen and you can hear my voice. Just let me know and we'll continue now.
All good.
One, thank you. There we go. So we are all good to go, it seems. One thing about aesthetics, which I didn't want to forget, um, is the placement of where you're going to place the core, the aesthetic notation. Let me see where I have actually got the example in this book, and a page number I'm going to give you, as well as explain a little bit of what I mean by the placement. Um, Let me see if I can. How do I magnify this? Just change. Magnify it a little bit. Let's see. Okay, this will do it. So I'm on page 217 of the book, of the manual. When I say book, that's the training manual. And there is an example on this page. It's illustration number, well, let's call it 15.1 or figure 15.1. This is actually showing the reference of a legal rule or something to do with a reference to a rule or a case law, which has its own peculiar way of how they write it. Like they use a combination of notation, symbols, numeric and alpha, word characters, different characters, making it into something which is referenceable and can be decoded easily because of the way it's written. But for the attorney, so this is examples for someone who understands law, yet it can be applied in so many different ways. But the complexity of it, as you can see, it has abbreviations like RS beginning with the letter R, then there is a dot, there is a S, then there is another dot, then there is a comma, then there is a space, then 1985, again a comma. So it has got all these different alphanumerics for which we might not have that strong of a memory to remember. And at the same time, we may have some references or partial or part of it we can remember. So to get to precisely where we can find this reference, without knowing of it entirely, we can plug in the gaps of what we don't remember by placing the asterisks, but at a precise point of where we may be missing that information. So if I want to, I hope you can see this part. Hopefully it should be clear. Um, I don't know if I can expand it further, but let me see if I can zoom in. Um, uh, let's say, okay, I'll try this one. Okay, this is better. Now, you can see that we have used to build a query with the asterisk using multiple segments, basically segmenting it with by putting a part of A within quotation marks. So the first one, I have put in the quotes, within quotes, asterisk, comma, and this inverted like arrow that's pointing upwards, just to give you that it's just denoting a space, a character space. Okay, so nothing that you have to um, think of other than the space. Okay, so we have a space here, and this space is coming before 1985, precisely as it is shown at the top. That's where we are creating uh, a partial map of how it is laid out, except that where there are gaps, we have made sure that the gaps are left. But the asterisk, the use of asterisks, as you can see, would be placed at a point where precise information you don't remember. Like you don't remember R dot S, and after R dot S full stop, there is a comma. So the comma is there, which means that whatever was before the comma is missing, and R dot S dot is missing, is what we are trying to find by placing the asterisk. But the location of it, the position of it should be precise. Okay. Then, okay. Then we have used asterisk one more time, and that is after a gap after the comma, which means comma, uh, 1985, gap 1985, then comma again, and then whatever is followed by the gap and continued with the operation uh, of a asterisk is the C dot, and everything that is going to come before. I mean, I don't want to make it complicated, but I want you to pay attention to, because this is much ahead of what you have learned so far. Why? Because if you look at the page number and look at the examples, those are to be covered in complex search queries, and that's going to follow after maybe at least one or two sessions. So it might be a little complex. For example, by putting this part or segmenting it as a quoted part, the next part that we would like to query, which is actually starting with the open quotation and then close quotation marks. There's 2014 C, similar to how we have done 1985, like first segment. This in between these two, there is two dots, which if you ignore, if you don't pay attention to, you'll miss out. These two dot means that this is a range. So we have used a combination of asterisk and two dots in between segments to uh, mm, to tell the search that this is a range of information that you have to find between what is on the first segment and what we have in the segment right here, which starts with 2014 onwards. So S dot one is missing, for example, we don't know of. So we can give it a range as well as use the asterisk. So it becomes very, I mean, it has to be done precisely with where the information needs to be filled in for the location of the placement of this asterisk to represent that missing part and at the precise location. So this becomes a little bit more complex. The two dots, like I said, we haven't introduced them yet, but these are to tell the search that this is a range. So range means the one segment versus the next segment, one extreme that ends with the other set, which is the end of the statement. That middle part would be considered a range of missing information. So that's why we have used the two dots. Sounds complex, it sounds, and it is complicated, but it is at, like I said, unless you feel that you need to, continue with learning slightly a higher level of how asterisk can be utilized, you can go to this page and look up the example, and pretty much, it's up to you to see how much of the need for it to be uh, put in situations as indicated, because this is mostly good for the law firms, for those who are doing legal research. um, it's very helpful because most these days, most of the case laws, rules, and things of that nature that are available easily online, they're all digitized. So not a bad idea to be able to learn through where you can put the, or you can place the asterisks. Okay, so I've got to finish at this, and I've got to start with the snippets, and that's where we are going to do in title, in text, and all, and in URL. Let me get back to my slides again. So this one. Okay, so what is snippet related search operators? So the ones that we are going to talk about now is using in title colon all in title, in text, and in URL. And I don't know how much of the HTML tags you remember. When we were doing this slide, you could see that we had segmented the page. We had headers that contain meta tags. We had the body of text, and then we had the footer. And all of these are read by the search engine as if it is going through individual HTML tags and reading it from there. And it is not looking at what is presented or what is appearing for the user. So the kind of queries that will be responsible for finding some information in that particular segment of the page, meaning header, body of text, footer, would depend on what type of operator you have selected. Like if you had selected in title or something to do with title part, the title, as you can see, and you have obviously you know what I'm talking about. Title is typically the information which is actually showing in larger fonts at the top, which is more like a title of something or something more precise, less words, but they are in larger fonts. So this part, title, this where we are going to look for information that is part of the title statement or part of what is contained in the HTML tag called title. The title tag is also a kind of a meta tag. Um, and the title has certain attributes or certain typical characteristics, one being less number of words, second, something from the language point of view, more precise information that defines what the page is about. So it's not like long sentences that using the typical wordings or the set of information which would give or cover a title area. That's what is going to be available for us to look for. Mostly the title tags contain information or words like format, like forms, like help, like FAQs, and things of that nature that would be giving a lot more information with least number of words. So it is typically a choice of how you would imagine certain words are used as part of the title statement or not. And that's where you will be querying through in title, or it is actually referred to as something that is to be found in the title area in the title tag. That's why we would be using the in title carefully in order for us to find the information that typically resides in the title statement and nothing like long sentences. Okay. So, as an example, we would start with why is in text? I want in title. Okay, there it is. So, in title, we have done some very quick search queries just to give you a fundamental idea. Like this one, for instance. Here it is saying California tax filing, which is the key terms we would like to find in the title tag, which means in the page at the meta level, what the page is about. But usually where, you have a home page, for example, in the title area of a home page, you will have meta information and anything that describes what the site is about. But when you keep navigating from one page to another, meaning in the same domain or the same website, you will see that with every new page, the title statement in the HTML would describe that particular page or what is in that particular navigational page in as well as the meta tag of what the website is about. So it has two portions of the title, one that is called meta, which is where it would be about the website. The second, non-meta, but still a title tag that talks about the page, what is in that particular page. So if it is a page that has a meta title about AOFIRS being Internet Research Specialist, the other non-meta tag that sort of it is a tail ender. It just resides still in the meta area, but called non-meta. That would tell you if you're on a membership page, it will say this is about the meta information is and the non-meta in title area is the information about a membership. So there would be a word membership in the title tag, which is non-meta in nature. And so this is exactly how the pages are separated and segmented for navigation. In the case of this example where California text filing is the word, in title, we'd like the word help. So ideally, what you will find in the meta statements or title statement is pages that are indicating whether it is about the help, about frequently asked question, whether contact, and so on and so forth. So using a more concise and I guess limited example, we put in title as the operator, which would have a declared property name, property value called help. So in the title of it, you will find the word help. And California text filing is referential only, not necessarily available in the title area, but part of the content page. Unless we had put in title California text filing plus in title help, that would make sure that both wordings or both sets of wordings which are to be restricted to in the title tag are pairing in the title statement as a mandatory return. However, luckily in this case we found the California tax filing and help as the wordings that are actually coming in the title portion. And like I said, they could be found or not necessary unless you put both of these segments within the in title tag or query it within title. It will ensure that it is found as a mandatory return in the title statement only. So let me just use it as an example just to make a point. Um, Let me copy it. Okay. So and what I'm trying to explain here, which I'm hoping I should be able to do. In fact, I've opened this one. So I'm going to get into in title. And first, let's get the conceptual part cleared up. Then we can do the actual examples. Now, conceptual part is to be explained based on uh, so let's suppose this is what I'm looking for in title help. And what will happen between 1 and 2, where I'm going to use the two instances of in title. So if I use in title, okay, where 1 versus 2, notice that in 2 we have used in title twice, and at the top we have used it once, which means that the word California text filing would if it is available alongside the word help somewhere in the title tag, it is going to show up in the snippet and it will show in that, the title fonts at the top. But not necessary, meaning that it is not forced. It is going to be the words that can be found in the rest of the body of text, but it is not forced to be found within the title tag or within the title area. Okay. Even though the example that we just saw, it had it in the title area, but I'm just generalizing and trying to give the concept of where the in title would effectively be forced. So where it is written in the state of 1 of how we have phrased it, California text filing may or may not be found in the title, yet in title or the title tag would definitely will have to contain the word help. Okay. So what is forced is placed after the quotation, after the colon sign here. And if I wanted both to be found, or both elements of both wordings to be found specifically in the title statement, I would have to write it twice. Okay. And another reason why I would write it the way I've written it here is something that I can tell you or explain to you in example number 4. Supposing if I had just used one instance of in title and I had placed the entire statement within quotations, what have I caused for the search to not act as precise? It may not even bring the results back to me. What is it that I have done that will make it um, unlikely to result to give the results I want? One is, supposing that the wording California tax filing is not obtained, or it is not available, for instance. Or if the California tax filing has to be written this way, where there should be no dashes, or where there was another variant filing, um, filing, filing, California tax filing 1040. Maybe this statement is available. Um, need help. Okay. Maybe, if it is written like this, and when it starts to compare and look for something which is precisely as it is being put inside of the code, may not be a sentence or a statement to be found anywhere on the content pages. Or typically, it is not something which is actually composed or put together precisely in the same way of writing. Then it will not be found. So for me to make sure that it is available and it won't be a problem, what I might do is I might just break it and segment it by using in title more than once, so that in title, if used again, would now be able to find the word California tax. It would be able to find word like filing 1040. Okay. Um, Not necessarily in the same way as we wrote previously, but something that could be part of a sentence which is containing it, but not missing out on these wordings, yet it would have the bearing on um, being found somewhere on the statement within the title text. So in title, the third time I'm using it, as you could see, the word help. So what I'm able to do within title is that I can make sure that those words that I know would joint or being together make sense as being part of the statement, because one is followed by another, like California text. And filing 1040 can be, another set. In title help can be associated with either of California tax or filing 1040 somewhere in the statement, but not necessarily as one long sentence, because we don't know the placement of the word help. So we can break it down into 3 instances of in title, so that it now is more helpful without remembering or without knowing how it is stated in the title statement in a tag. So that's one of the reasons where in title can be broken down into different segments, and you can use multiple instances of in title without any problem. Okay. Um, Same way, you can use anything that you don't want included in the title statement. So if I don't want a certain word to be included or should be excluded totally, I might just use, like if I don't want the word help to be included in the title statement, I would just use a minus sign here, and this would work totally fine. No problem. You'll get the results without the word help in there. And supposing if I want within title, okay, and in the same query, now assuming number 4 is one long query, excluding the word help, and at the same time, I don't want the word, let's say, word 2019. So I don't want, let's suppose I'm in 2023, then let's say 2022. I don't want this number anywhere or any reference to 2022. I want a filing form 1040 for 2023. So I might just use the minus sign and put 2022 there. That means this is the word, or this is the year which should not have a mention anywhere on the content page. Not just in title, as you could see, the word help is exclusively to be excluded from the title tag, but it may be somewhere else on the content page. That part we are not pursuing, or we are not asking it to exclude it from the rest of the content. Exclusively minus in title says not to include it in the title statement. But when I don't put in title colon 2022 with a minus sign, it means I want the entire term, which is 2022 to 2022, to be excluded from every bit of the content, including whatever is in the meta headers, non-meta headers, footers. That is where the minus with, and 2022 can be replaced by word also. But for now, let's say I don't want 2022 anyway. Then I'm going to say minus 2022. So now these are concepts. These are concepts of understanding what would work and what is the utility of using it, like in multiple instances, breaking it down for the search phrase to make it more flexible for use of the words, especially where you don't quite precisely remember exact statement, or the exact placement or sequence of the search phrase. That's where you're going to break it. So this is something that I've explained. And this goes for all other advanced operators we'll be using. So I don't want to keep repeating it, so that we can save some time on when we're going to do in text and in URLs. Uh, we will save time with the understanding that the variations of it would be similar to how the use of or disuse or miss or not or to follow the rules that is applied in title would work all the same. Okay. um, so any questions so far? You think I can explain better if you'd want something that you did not understand? And please, um, you know, uh, let me know at the time when something you don't understand at that precise moment. I'll be able to then, be able to go through the flow of it in a manner that would suit you.
No, I'm good.
You're good, Dorothy? Okay. So all clear. I can see that you're all doing very well. Thank you for that. Usually I get loads of questions. Um, and of course, I mean, it doesn't have to be like, I mean, there is no such thing as silly questions, okay? In my mind, I have a lot of questions. They look silly at times, or they look like, you don't understand it all that well. But the 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 most important thing is that even those questions um, are helpful for me to get an understanding of where I'm not able to explain the basic concepts, because those concepts sometimes, if that part is missing, it appears they're silly questions, but they're really not silly because I must have missed out on something. So don't be hesitant. There is no such thing as, the questions for which you have to think twice. Just go for it. I would like to start with giving examples of something called in-text. In-text is more interesting and it is a deeper query. It is textual query in the sense that it digs into the larger content, which could be, you know, paragraphs, lines, caption, things that are inside of the non-meta tags, which are far numerous and far too many compared to the meta tags. Talk a lot about meta tags. It's important just to define or identify the nature of the page or the type of the page, but it is not a lot of information for someone who is doing research work to look for the document or document that contains information on a subject matter. So I would be using in-text quite a lot. That's probably the most used operator, as well as in URL is also the second most used, and in title comes the last. In URL depends on your understanding of how the URL itself is important for getting to the precise page or the content that you're looking for, and also it has numerous advantages which otherwise you would be questioning of why is it so important when there's so few words in the URLs, or they may not be as detailed to give it enough meaning for you to look for something within URLs. So we'll look at the utility of it in terms of even with the less number of word, why it is important. For instance, one important reason we use in URL is to find the source of where the information is coming from. Is it coming from educational institutions, military? Is it coming from blogs? Is it coming from articles? Is it a news element? Is it coming from research paper? Is it forum related? And so on and so forth. So nobody understood that part, and they were just, sort of questioning why URL in URL is so important. So we'll tackle that part. For now, let's continue with what could be considered as a deeper query with in-text. Okay. Uh, However, you must be thinking, why have I not discussed all in title versus in title? Let's just, I would have done it later, but I'll do it now because I think I've opened it already here. So might as well do it. Okay, so the difference between in title and all in title. One of the things about in title, as I showed you, you can use multiple instances of in title. You can break something into components, smaller words to be found in whichever manner they are available. Doesn't have to be sequential, but something that should be present. And so therefore we used in title multiple times. All in title, you can't use multiple times. Just keep that thought for now, and I'll show you why it is so. Um, let's run it in this one. Okay. See, all in title. What all in title means that the words that are followed after the colon sign should be inclusive or be included in the title statement. Like all of these words, which in this case were internet, research, specialist, all three have to be present. Okay. However, um, with all in title, the caveat here is that without enclosing all three of them within quotes, you're just telling the search to find him in anywhere in the title statement. So if it is a title tag, for instance, this one, it is saying internet research specialist as 3-word being present, whereas the statement somehow has these in the sequence or matching as they're placed after the colon sign, but this may not be necessary, meaning that when we use in title, when we use the word all within title, uh, the word internet, the word research, and specialist, all three of them can be found, but the word research and specialist, um, um, okay, let me rephrase it. I don't see it to be the best example. I got to go to another one. This one, okay. I'm going to show it because I don't want to create the confusion from the very beginning. I don't even know why this slide is there. So let's just look at this one. Difference between all in title and in title. In title, you had 3 words: internet, search engine, okay. And the fourth one was index. So 4 words were here. And when we ran it with in title, it found 3 of these in the title segment, which is where you could see at the top, this is the title statement, but it dropped the word index totally, okay, from the title statement, or it's not part of the tag that contains the entire title statement, which is shown here. So it was selective. It selected 3 words and dropped the last word. That's what happens using in title. However, if I have to find all 4 words to be necessarily present in the title statement, I would use all in title, and I would write internet search engine index the same way, except that with all in title or adding all, I got a result that had all 4 words in the title statement. But let me also tell you a subtle difference in how the command will work. One is that when you use all in title, all 4 of these words are found, no doubt. But it is not necessary that the word search engine and index. Now I'm saying search engine and index, not talking about the word internet, which is hugging the colon sign. So 3 words search engine and index will be present, but may not be in the same sequence, where index can be part of it, search engine can be together, or engine can be separated, meaning that it does not necessarily keep the integrity of sequence in which it is put. That's what will happen with all in title. Now talking about the word internet, whereas all in title ensures the 3 words search engine and index are there, the word internet will have to be the starting word of the first word. Or you could say that the word internet same will behave the same way as in the case of in title colon, meaning that will be given no option to be dropped, or where the word internet is mandatory for the search to find in the return results and specifically in the title state. And the search and engine and index will become optional as to be found or not to be found, where you could also see index was dropped. But in the all in title, none of the words will be dropped, but the sequence can be changed. However, the word internet will be the first word as shown in all in title. Moreover, if you look at the all in title, it is supposed to be an absolute command, which means it will not coexist with another instance of all in title. So it kind of makes it less flexible for you to put it in the query where it would require further restrictors or edit commands to work alongside. So it is in that sense less flexible. Um, and in the case of in title, because it is more flexible and it will work really nicely with every other you know snippet related operator specifically, it is given a more of a preference when you are creating your search queries. You would see, especially in the examples shown in the book, we have used in title mostly. All in title is kept, just as something which is occasionally used, and a lot of times it is not as workable, and least used. Same situation with all in URL and all in text. Whenever you put the word all, becomes less flexible, you know. Um, in the in title instance where we have used a minus in title, as you could see, we've dealt with this before. The word policy would be excluded from the title statement. Okay, that's why. Then we've got number 4 that says minus in title reform. Okay, so nothing spectacular about 4. It's just one of the examples. You can use the in title in the OR situation or situation. Let's look some of the ways in which OR would react when you're using multiple instances or comparing in title as options. Okay, so I'm going to write this in the Word document, still continuing with in title. Uh, I would consider it as number 5. And just replace this one with the vertical bar. So I got 2 instances of in title here. I'm saying that I'm okay with the statement Donald Trump immigration bill to be found in the title tag, or in the title tag I can do with the immigration reform policy. Just because, I don't know precisely what could be a better way of, or if it is presented somewhere in the content page in 2 different ways. So we've used OR in between with 2 statements, we can do that. Now, what could be the different variations of how we can apply OR, and why some of the ways might not be as workable? Now, with the OR command, I'm going to show you in this case where the OR would not work as well. Now, in title, now it's just like I have to come back to the rules all the time, but the basic rules remain the same. It is more like a reminder. So if I have in title this way, I would not be putting, I would try and not put it this way, the way that I have shown you the variation with removing one of the in title. Now, if you do this, what is going to happen if you compare 5 with 5.1? What will happen? What will happen is that in the in title portion, it will try to find this as a statement because it is coming after the colon sign. But with OR, what you are saying is without putting the in title before the immigration reform policy is a second option. What you're telling the search is to find these or find immigration reform policy anywhere on the content page, not necessarily in the title portion. You see, this or will not make it a comparable statement inside of the in title as a mandatory command for it to be compared within the title text. Here, this statement will definitely impose the title tag to contain this, and the other part will be anything or any of it, or the statement itself to be found anywhere on the content page. So, what will be the result? This will definitely appear, but the other option OR will not react or act with what is stated here as an option. Rather, it is Donald Trump immigration is a mandatory return. Immigration reform is an optional one which can be anywhere in the content page. Or it may be ignored totally because the OR creates that confusion. So the idea of using OR, as I told you earlier in the first few lessons when we started working with the booleans, I told you to compare all apples with apples, same concept with the same concept using OR, both acceptable portions of what you can you can give a reference to or is being equally good has to be placed with the OR statement. Okay, so two concepts or two areas or two things which may be totally different may not work. In this case, totally different means that we are not using in title as a second instance, comparable to the first one, which includes in title. So that is something you have to be aware of and know that in order for you to compare something within a certain title tag, mention the title tag as shown in 5. That will work far better. Similarly, if you had, now I keep reminding the same concepts I may not be able to repeat in other operations just to save time. So think of these as having the same application for in-text and in URL that we'll continue with later. Okay. Now supposing I will not call this incorrect. This is correct, but not preferable. Okay. Because it is, when I say correct, meaning it is correct to state or to use, but it is not as preferable. Why? Because it's not incorrect, like technically speaking, but it won't bring you the result which you intended. That's why it is not preferable. Maybe there is should be another word I could use to make it less of words. Uh, anyway, this should be 5.2. Why is it not 5.2? Any. Okay, actually, let's just say 1.2, or let me, okay. In B, what I would be explaining is the minus sign. So if you're going to use minus in title, say, this is not a good idea. You don't put a or with a minus. It may be a word or it may be the entire term along with the operator with a minus sign. Here again, no comparison. It's not apples with apples. You don't want to use that. Instead, if you want to use a minus sign, you just have to get rid of OR totally, because minus is a command that is, that is a firm indication that you don't want something to exist. It's not an option. So you would go like this. However, there could be one more thing you can do. When you're using a minus sign, you have to remove OR. If you don't want this is the only way that you're going to use the minus sign, either this way or this way. Okay. No other way. In text. Let's get to the in text. In case if we are not able to finish everything in time, for instance, like the last lecture we have, say on a certain date, uh, we can do two things. One is that we've got like some of the videos that keep mentioning it, but never get them ready. But I'm sure by the time we finish everything, they should all be there. So one option would be to use those videos, or we could take one or two extra classes, for which, means that you may have to give an okay, majority of you to, for me to give those additional classes. Just keep that in mind. But we'll always have these two options. Video is just as good, except that, it just depends. When we get to it, or when we'll cross the bridge when it comes. Um, okay, so in-text operation is given a task to read through the deeper textual content of web pages, find matching for specific word. Now, body of text, you understand what it means, right? Body of text actually really, what it means for the search engine is anything that is non-meta in nature, meaning meta information is there, which is where it's going to go to first, as if it is the main information or gives a general idea. And body of text with non-meta text means, or when we say body of text, it is going to query everything else except for the meta headers, or not sorry, except I apologize, inclusive of meta text. But when you do when you run queries for meta text, like in title, for instance, or anything that has to do with specific tags that are named meta, uh, those type of s- uh, search queries are um, related to or with reference to everything else, but it is not queried as deep, or let's suppose the keywords, for example, they are not queried, but they're part of the meta text. So the meta has certain limitations. Non-meta definitely is inclusive of everything else. So when it says body of text, it means everything else, where we are querying, like the time and date stamps, the paras, and if we want to get to the time and date, especially for the writers to look at who is the author, who uploaded it, which was the source of it, when the story changed or evolved. As a convention, or especially the news agencies which are reputable and which are well known, those have a convention generally to include certain information in the meta portion or the meta text. Like I said, it would have upload date, change that, reprint it, re-upload it. It would have information which goes further than just uh, uh, limiting it to one part of the story. Um, Even if it's an article, it'll have more detailed information about date and timestamp. Date and timestamp is very important for various reasons, but one of the main reason is that, who broke the story, where the source came from, when was it first published, was it something that had an add more events added to it, or it is still evolving, or it is, so all that information, that blueprint of it will be uploaded to ensure that, if somebody is copying or going after that information, the first hand information, or whoever captured it first and published it first, would be the winner in the and I don't know if I'm right or wrong. Justin, am I saying it correctly? Whoever brings the story first is the winner, isn't it? Like it's very comparative.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah. So that information can be extracted with the source code, within the source code. In-text has its roots in two segments of HTML tags. One part is part of the meta tag we call description area or description tag, which is the meta level of information. And then the non-meta related to the in-text or body of text would include the paras, as shown here. I don't know if it's visible enough, but this is the HTML code opened up describing where the in-text is going to work, or what portion of the content page will be queried when you're using in-text. So in-text would look at H2 or the captions or the main heading. H2 is the second biggest heading. H3 is a smaller than H2, and so on, if you recall. P tag means that this is the paragraph area, or the one of the paras. So P is a deeper information, and it is further going into other P's and H's, as you could see, and within these um, areas, which is obviously the tags is the enclosure, and it begins with the less than sign, ends with more than sign. Whatever is in between is considered to be part of the in-text query, or that's where it is going to match your key terms. And so it continues. So it is deeper in that sense. Now, the description part is inclusive of using it with the in-text and along with everything else in the body with P's and H's and so on. So in-text works like that. Let's see with the example shown here from the snippets perspective, whatever gets pulled in the description area. For instance, we ran this query, okay, in text, web cert certifications within quotes. What will happen is that first of all, you'll see this snippet. Within the snippet, the description part would highlight these wordings. And where are these wordings coming from? These are extracted. And remember, it's in text. That is why the description portion would show from the caption, like caption is, the main heading. In this case, where I'm pointing to is part of the content page that is visible to the user, and the example of how the words are coming and being matched, like these sets of words, web cert certification, training and education, is a caption or the main heading. What is under it in smaller text is the para or the P headings. But when we did in text and use these three words, it extracted it from H3 as a priority or as the main statement from where it matches and brings it to the description area and highlights it. And where it is where it is running on the back end in the HTML tag, you can see it is coming from H2 tag, and it says web cert certification. So that's just the flow of how the information is read. Then from the user's eyes, it's looking at it on the page, and where it started, all where you got returned snippets, you saw that it came in the description area. Okay, so this is the flow of it. That's all. Now, let's take an example of how in-text brings the valuable information back to us. Taking an example of in-text query like this one, let me see if I can quickly copy it and see how it is set in this example. Let's look at it. So let's suppose this is the query. Okay. Now, what we have done is used in-text, three instances of in-text. In the first one, these three words as search term. Second search term is a partial sentence, as you can read only research and business intelligence, meaning that it's not complete, you can tell just by reading it. It's part of it. Then we have used the third instance, CIRS certification. So when we are writing it this way, what we are saying is that the in text or anywhere on the content page, it should have these sets of combination of words as three search phrases or three search terms. All of these to be found in the deeper text, not in the header portion or not in the title tag. Okay. So with this query, what we got as a result of running it, we got something that looks like this. Okay. Let me run it. You would see that it pulled the information from a page which is shown here in the background. You see this page? This is the page. But in the snippet side, you saw that this was the snippet that showed up. And in the snippet, when you started to read, you saw in the description area, it's got like three dots here and one part which has a long sets of words ending before the second set of three dots, and so it continues. So the first set means that the three dots means that they are separating the paras of where this information is found, because if one set of words or one search phrase is in para 1, other can be in para 3, or if it's a very long document, it could be way down compared to whatever else is follows it or precedes it. So a lot of distance between where these words are found, and all of that cannot be stated in the description area because this is a limited real estate. So in the first para, where it is showing three dots means that it is now segmenting it and separating it as one, indicating para one or whatever para number. There is no para numbers, but just separating the paras, assuming we've used numbers just for explanation. So researchers in becoming an accomplished internet research. So first segment or first area or first para, it found these three words. In the second para, which is separated by another set of three dots, completed the CIRS certification as matching words. And in the last one, it had the last set of three dots that separated these paras, and the last statement or the last search term, online research and business intelligence, got matched. So all of these were shown in the description part. But when you're doing in-text, because of the number of words you're using and because of the limitation of that description area, don't expect all those words would be shown in the or would appear in the description part, because of the distance between terms within the paras, longer paras, longer number of in text that you have used, or multiple instances that may not fit into this area. So just assuming that because it is not highlighted or it is not shown in description, it is not available to you, would be a mistake. Something that I can bet you, and we've tried it like several times, when you actually click on that page and go there and look for it, it will surely be there somewhere. Okay. So don't think that this is the only way for you to identify it with the correct information, or clicking or not clicking it might be a question. Rather, it is a definitive thing that if it's not there, still, when you go to the page, surely you will find it. Okay. So this is just showing the separated paras, and assuming in the background there is one big page that is appeared, and these are the different paras or different areas on that page where these terms were appearing: first term, second term, third term. The CRS certification was in this para under online classes. The corporate programs would be another para where this information or this term is present. So that's what Intex did when we ran it with the query as shown right here. Okay. Now assume if you had used the similar wordings using in title command, what would have happened? You know, try that out and you will find out that it would be a major mistake to use, instead of in text, you use in title command. For instance, in title, I wouldn't expect wordings online research and business intelligence to be part of the title, but there could be. I'm not saying that I cannot predict, but my general sense is the middle one, which is online research and business, may not be there, or if it is part of the title somewhere, I'm assuming if we had used in title instead of in text, that's what I'm referring to. So the middle one I'm saying might be least likely, but could be there. However, we would have some examples that would prove it, or you may want to try it on your own, or certain wordings for which you have used in title, but may not be the right operator to use, depending on what you have placed inside of the quotations. If it's not part of the title generally, and it is a longer statement, maybe an extract from a portion of a long sentence that typically may not be found in title, then your entire query um, will fail. So the idea where you have used multiple operators in a single search, or operators like in title and in text together, and even if one of the operators are not using the correct sort of placement of search terms, the entire query is going to fail. It's not like it's going to execute partially. There is no partial execution. If there is an error, it is an error that would fail the entire process of search. So that is to be considered. I'm going to look at some examples. Okay. Hmm. The description part where you can assume that the in-text would be pulling that information for you to review as a result of the snippets showing. You can see a la carte all different ways of how the description part of a snippet would vary or would have different formats. Okay. This is the example of it. It's just a big mess of how the description part keeps evolving and keeps changing. We will do some of the examples tomorrow with in-text and in-title together. And then we will do the in URL. But in today's lecture, this is where we are going to conclude. I'm just showing you the examples of how the description might be different or how they are named. For instance, take one example. We ran an in-text with Bart Simpson as the subject or as the declared property value against in-text. So Bart Simpson gave us all these different results that you're seeing. But what is peculiar or unusual from what we are typically used to looking at as snippets, you could see that the variations of different snippets would start showing up. Like the first one, for instance, this description is different because it has voiced by, it has information like first appearance and so on, additional information. This is called paragraph featured rich snippet. Okay. They're named according to how they show the description portion as a result of of running in-text query. Then you've got, even these related questions are also snippets, but they are different kind of snippets. You've got snippets like this one. This is called rich text snippet because it has rating. Okay. Then you've got news text snippet, which is a news coming about Bart Simpson. Strangely, these are real examples coming from the query as shown in text. Bart, you can type it and you can see. So these are whatever is in gray color right here or anything that is shown beneath under the title portion, all of it is part of the return information collected or extracted from the HTML tags and placed under those title statements. And you can see the formats of it. So many variations of it. So this example you have in your PDFs or PowerPoints. This is called knowledge panel snippet. Okay. Not that you have to learn this for the exams, but this is just for your information. And who knows, tomorrow you will see another format because Google keeps changing it and it's experimenting with it. However, more important for anyone to be found or to be shown as bulk of information that is giving generally a broader concept of where you're about to go to when you click on it is everything extracted by running in text query. And um, yeah, even these Simpsons characters, okay, these are related images. These are called related images, rich search snippet. So they have all these different names, but you won't be tested or be expected to know them or understand them as as a terminology. That's just for the impression to give you different variants of how in-text would bring information back. Okay. So what we will do next in the next class, and I'm pretty sure we have to extend and or we have to I have to do one additional class from whatever generally the number of classes we get done. Um, so next we will do some examples of in-text along with in-title and also get introduced to in URLs. and I mentioned that already, why it is important, some of the reasons where I feel that using in URL or all in URL command is most useful, depending, as I explained. So we'll catch up with those concepts, and we'll do that in our next class, which is day after tomorrow. And I've got the schedule open. I don't want to make a mistake, and even for you to know, this is what I'm looking at for the schedule. That's what I'm seeing. Um, we are actually, today is the 7th class. So 8th, 9th, 10th. Okay. I think I'll be able to finish it. Should not be. So we still have 3 more classes. I'll see you on Friday, which is 1st of September. And there is a holiday on the 4th of September. Is that correct? I didn't know there's a holiday. You have holiday on the 4th of September, right?
Yep,
Uh,
Labor
okay.
Day.
Labor Day.
Labor Day. That's what it is. I see. Okay. So Labor Day for you guys, and then that's back to back 5th and 6th. Okay. We'll figure it out. So I'll see you day after on Friday. Okay. Thank you
Right.
so much.
Good
Any
Friday.
questions I
Right.
can, any
Nope.
questions all right. So good to go. I'll see you in next class.
All
Take
right.
care now.
Take
All right,
care.
Bye bye.
Take
See
care.
you.
Take care, everyone.
See you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you. Bye bye.